Hello and welcome back to the channel. Something a bit different today. Just going to run through my 25 favorite albums of 1972. A few reasons for doing this. Taste Like Music are doing a big deep dive into the year, and as a follower of theirs, I decided to do a deep dive myself to have a more comprehensive knowledge of the year. Obviously, as well, Rich, Randy, Brian, and Glenn did a live stream uh, ranking their favorite albums of this year as well. So sort of inspired by both of those channels doing that. So yeah, I mean, I might as well just get into it. There's a lot of stuff I've discovered very recently, and also some stuff that I've known for as long as I can remember. So I'm going to start with doing five at a time until we get to the top 10, and then I'll talk a bit more in detail about each one. At number 25, I have Club da Esquina, which is a really interesting sort of Brazilian pop album. A lot of great melodic stuff on here. Some really good highlight tracks. My number 24 is Rhymes and Reasons by Carole King. Carole King, one of my favorite songwriters. Tapestry from the year before is definitely a stronger album, but Rhymes and Reasons is definitely really good in its own right. I love Bitter with the Sweet, one of the better songs. And then at number 23, I have Harvest by Neil Young, which I suppose other people might have higher, but it's a really competitive year. I still think this is a great album. It's not my favorite Neil Young album. I definitely prefer Everybody Knows This Is Nowhere and After the Gold Rush, but it's a really strong one. Again, I think the production on a few tracks does hinder it a little bit, but it has some of his finest songs, like Old Man, especially, is one that I really like, and Heart of Gold, obviously. Number 22 is a band that I've talked about. I actually talked about them in my first video that I did on this channel, and it's Focus with Focus 3. It's a long album with a lot of really long progressive tracks. So Sylvia on it, which is one of the best songs, real symphonic feel to it. And yeah, it's not quite as good as, again, not quite as good as Moving Waves, which they did the year before, but it's really strong as well. It made the top 25 in the 70s year, so it's a strong album. And then number 21 is Something Anything by Todd Rundgren. Um, Another one that gets a lot of hype, and I think rightly so. I think it's a double album, and I think the first disc is definitely stronger than the second disc for me, anyway. It wouldn't have made any difference, which is maybe my favorite Todd Rundgren song. I think it's fantastic, and the whole album has a great feel to it. So yeah, that's 25 through 21. And the next five we got at number 20 is Talking Book by Stevie Wonder, another one that people might have higher. I suspect a lot of people will have higher, but I think it's strong. I think especially the back half, actually, with Big Brother and Superstition, and I Believe. Those are my three favorites on the album, all on the back half. So yeah, pretty great album there from Stevie. Number 19 is one of the albums I've known for the longest of these, probably the album I've known second longest on this list, and it's Exile on Main Street by the Rolling Stones. Not the biggest Rolling Stones fan these days. This is probably my favorite one, though. It's really great. It has Rocks Off, Tumbling Dice, Shine a Light, some of their best, Happy, loads of great stuff. Really, yeah, they really go hard on the blues rock influence, which I kind of like. It's a very grimy, dirty album. Then number 18 was a very new discovery for me. Ennis by Colin Blunstone, lead singer of the Zombies, solo album. If you like 70s melodic soft rock, then this is probably an album that you're going to enjoy, I would say. Plenty of great songs. I Don't Believe in Miracles is probably my favorite on that one. Number 17 is Foxtrot by Genesis. Really, really strong album. Supper's Ready is fantastic, of course. But I also like Timetable a lot as well, and Watch for the Skies. Really good songs there as well, and it's a really strong album. And then number 16 album I had actually never heard of going into this, and it is Hosiana Mantra by Popol Vuh, which is a very atmospheric, mostly instrumental album with some female vocals in there, and it's really soothing music, really good sort of late night music, I would say. Really spiritual. So yeah, if you haven't heard that, I would recommend it. which then leads us into the 15 through 11, and we're getting some real heavy hitters here. All of these are lucky not to make the top 10, and in a lot of years they would make the top 10, but 1972 is strong. So number 15 is You Don't Mess Around with Jim by Jim Croce. I've always thought, this is another album I've known for years. I've always thought that this sort of plays like a greatest hits. You got the title track, you got Walking Back to Georgia, you got Time in a Bottle, you got Operator, all just fantastically written songs. And it is just great. I mean, I think it's a bit plain, maybe, is the only complaint I would have, but there's great instrumentation and the songwriting is great. And I don't know, it's just solid. I find it hard to have that many issues with it. Number 14, Stevie Wonder comes on the list again, this time with Music of My Mind, which I actually do prefer over Talking Book. It has my favorite Stevie Wonder song on it, I Love Every Little Thing About You. It has Superwoman, which is also fantastic. Just great from front to back, really, really strong, really progressive, interesting music. He was really changing the game in soul. Number 13, Number One Record by Big Star, which I feel like I'm going to have a Big Star ranking up with Ryan soon. So I won't go too much into detail, but it's a really good album. 13, Ballad of El Goodo, Watch the Sunrise, great songs, all of those. Then at number 12, we're sticking in the realm of power pop. I've got Fresh by the Raspberries, which I think is incredibly strong. Nobody Knows is fantastic. I Want to Be With You, just really great, upbeat power pop. It's really my kind of thing, really catchy music. And yeah, I think it's kind of underrated, if anything, in the grand scheme of things. And then number 11, just missing the top 10, is Steely Dan's Can't Buy a Thrill. I'd only heard Asia by Steely Dan before listening to this one, and this one is definitely a bit more of a better starting point, at least. Do It Again is fantastic. Dirty Work I already knew going in. Reading in the Ears as well. Only a Fool Would Say That is a great deeper cut, as well as Brooklyn Knows That Charmer Under Me. Just really solid songwriting, great playing, melodic, just everything you'd want from a pop rock album is present here, which then leads us to the top 10. Coming in at number 10, these are all just fantastic albums, so splitting these is tough, but I've done it. Number 10, I've got Thick as a Brick by Jethro Tull. We're going back to the realm of prog on this one, and it is really strong. It's probably my favorite Jethro Tull album I've heard. Just some great playing, great lyrics on there as well. It's just a really strong album from front to back. I love the acoustic instrumentation involved. It's really quite melodic as well for a prog album, which I like. So yeah, Thick as a Brick is really strong. Number 9, I've got Bored Civilians by Keith Cross and Peter Ross, which is another one I had no idea it existed before going into this. And it is a real gem. It's not on streaming, so I had to listen on YouTube. But man, Last Ocean Rider, the opening track, is one of my favorite songs from this year. I think it's fantastic. The way it just bursts out into the jam in the second half of that song is great. It's sort of, yeah, like folk rock, soft rock, reminds me of Fleetwood Mac in parts. Yeah, just really strong and definitely worth your time if you haven't listened to it. Number 8 is going to be Transformer by Lou Reed. Another one which, this one actually I think I thought would be higher because it's one I've known for longer than a lot of these, but it kind of slipped down when I was re-listening to them all to compare them. Obviously, though, the highlights on this are unbelievable. Vicious, Walk on the Wild Side, Perfect Day, Satellite of Love. I even like Goodnight Ladies, the closing track, but there's a couple, it's not as memorable front to back as some of the albums I have ahead of it, which is why it slipped a little bit. But Lou Reed's a fantastic songwriter, and it has, yeah, in Perfect Day, probably a top 3 or 4 song of the year for me. I think that's just a perfect song. You couldn't improve it if you tried. So yeah, my number 7 is going to be Superfly by Curtis Mayfield. Talked about my love for Curtis Mayfield on the channel before. Probably my favorite soul singer. It's probably my second favorite album of his. I prefer his album Curtis from 1970, but this is still fantastic. Pusher Man, Eddie Should Know Better, A Little Child Running Wild, title track Superfly is great. Just fantastic. The band is feels so cohesive. Really great instrumentation. And obviously, his vocals are unreal on this album, as you'd expect. Then coming in at number 6, really unlucky to miss the top 5 because I really have fallen in love with this album, and it is The Slider by T-Rex. I love this album. I mean, opening with Metal Guru, that is just what a way to open the album. The scream that opens that song, it's so catchy, so bouncy, but it doesn't end there. The second track, Mystic Lady, is also fantastic. You also got Ballrooms at Mars, Telegram Sam. Just from front to back, it is a great experience. The only knock I'd have on it is that it's a bit too samey, maybe. But even then, I love all the tracks. It's more that I'm complaining compared to the stuff that I have above it, which is, the nature of doing these rankings. And then the top 5 were in some of my favorite albums of the 70s, really. Number 5, I'm going with Black Sabbath Volume 4, which is my favorite Black Sabbath album. It has Supernaut, which is probably my second favorite Sabbath song, Snowblind, which is up there. Just from front to back, it's great. Changes is just fantastic. Yeah, I think it is their most, up to this point, is their most experimental album. I love the sound of it. The guitars sound amazing. Ozzy's vocals have never sounded better. It's not really straight ahead metal for a lot of it, which is sort of more to my taste, I suppose. But it still rocks really hard, and some great riffs, great playing all around on the whole album. So yeah, Black Sabbath Volume 4 is my number 5. My number 4, another album I've talked about on the channel before, and it's Son of Schmilson by Harry Nilsson. Yeah, this is a very interesting album. Again, it's not going to be for everyone, but it is for me, that's for sure. I love Take 54, such a strange way to open the album. And then you go into the really endearing Remember, and then Joy, which is this really strange, funny Johnny Cash parody. And then into Turn On Your Radio, which is a lovely little pop song. And then into You're Breaking My Heart, which is, one of his most amazing songs. The chorus, You're Breaking My Heart, You're Tearing Me Apart, so fuck you. Just amazing. Like, for 1972, I was very shocked when I was listening to it, to be honest. And yeah, I just love that album. It also has the Lottery song, which is one of my favorite Harry Nilsson songs. Yeah, it's it's probably one of the most fun albums to listen to from front to back. But if I'm being honest with myself, I think the top 3 are just stronger albums, even if I do love listening to this one more than most people do, it seems. But yeah, top 3, this is tough. My number 3 is going to be St. Dominic's Preview by Van Morrison, which is my favorite Van Morrison album. Jackie Wilson Said, my favorite Van Morrison song, good contender for my favorite song of this year. Just so catchy, so infectious, puts a smile on my face every time I hear it. Also, the title track is amazing. Listen to the Lion is really weird, but I love it. It's just an incredible vocal performance. Redwood Tree is amazing as well. Just really is a fantastic album. And the only thing that those 4 tracks are all perfect to me, and the other 3 are good, but they're not at the same level. That's sort of the level that it's up against, really, with these top 2 albums. So 3rd place for St. Dominic's Preview. I love it so much, but there are 2 albums I like better. And we're going to number 2, which is another album I talked about before, and it's Close to the Edge by Yes. This one, first time I heard it, I really loved it, and I just kept being drawn back to it, especially the title track. And then eventually I was drawn back to And You and I. Eventually I was drawn back to Siberian Cut True, and that's the 3 tracks on the album. The epic nature of it is amazing. John Anderson's voice, all the playing is unbelievable. Again, for a prog album, it's incredibly melodic, and they really knew how to end a epic with catharsis in the case of the title track, because that is just the way it all just comes back in and feels like the most epic thing ever. And You and I is just lovely. Love the acoustic instrumentation on that. Great vocal melody. Siberian Cut True is just, it rocks out so much, and I love it. It's a lot of variety throughout the 3 songs, which is definitely needed when you've got epics of that length. So yeah, I don't have a bad word to say about that album. It's a perfect 10. and there's only one album better than it from this year. Most years it would probably take the top spot, but the album that does take the top spot is David Bowie's The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. Surprise, surprise, I know. This opens with 5 Years, which has always been my favorite song on the album, up there with my favorite David Bowie songs. That's Starman, Ziggy Stardust, Rock and Roll Suicide, Moon Age Daydream. Just an absolutely stacked album from front to back. The concept it's there. It's not in your face, but it's sort of, you can follow along with the concept, and it really does evoke. It makes me think of a certain time and place when I'm listening to it. It really paints a picture. The album cover is perfect. It sums up the album perfectly to me. And yeah, I mean, I don't have much to say about it that hasn't already been said. Mick Ronson's guitar obviously is great. Bowie's vocals, the songwriting, it's just the perfect package of an album, really, for me, and that's why it's come out number one in a really strong year. So that's my 1972 list. Feel free to share yours down below, and I'll be back with some more videos soon. As mentioned, Big Star album ranking is coming, and then some other interesting things lined up as well. We've got the Beatles still to come with Sam. We'll get to that. We've got another guest coming on for Ween. Another couple of guests coming on for a ranking of Wilco at some point down the line as well. So a lot of really exciting stuff to come. And yeah, thanks for watching.